Hello, class, and thank you for joining me for week 8. This is our final week together, and it's been a journey. We dove into many things in the coaching realm, looking at techniques and using the application in real time. And for that, I'm really appreciative for having these moments and to learn from you. So, with that being said, let's get into this last topic. We're talking about the appreciative inquiry, in which this is a framework that leans in on a more positive outlook instead of a problem solving outlook. This can be used within coaching to start facilitating more positive outcomes using positive questioning and really creating this philosophical design that is led by conversations and language. So, with that being said, we have these 5 core principles. These core principles of appreciative inquiry are constructionalist. So, constructionalist is what we say words create worlds. So, again, using this language and conversational dynamics, we can kind of implicitly create a understanding of what reality is. We can call this like social constructs, but based off of what we say and what we do. But it's in our own way that we can create something together, and in coaching, this is important. Simultaneously principle. So inquiry creates change. This is very important within this inquiry, this appreciative inquiry. So, because of the nature of questioning, it leads to more and more unknowingness, but it also leads to more and more discovery. So, when we ask these questions, we start to create the movement of change. Because once we have the question, the next thing is what is going to happen from there. In this way, we can call it a catalyst. Based off of the precision of the question, we can move it forward in whichever way the question really leads it to. So questioning is very important, and simultaneously, principle is just saying that the question is also the thing that drives it forward, that drives the change forward. Poetic principle. So this one was cool to learn. It's like saying we have our ability to check out books or to like look at books through our endless knowledge of study and learning. And just like this one, Strength Finders, what we look at is based off of our choice. And when we look at this, it's intentional directioning of where we want to go with this understanding and learning. So again, based off of our questioning, based off of the positive frameworks, we can lead things in a way that we want it to look at, or we want it to look like. And then also what we have is positive principle. Positive principle is, as it says in its name, it's positive questions leading to positive change. So again, what this can look like for a coach, we can create a safe place, amplifying what is working well instead of focusing on what isn't working well. And by doing so, we can pursue a more motivated and buy-in approach from our coaches or teams or organizations. And lastly, what we have is anticipatory principle. This is images inspire action. So let's say we create the picture in our head of what it looks like to be in a place of peace, or what it looks like to have a more productive, day at work. What does that look like? So if we can picture it, right, then we can envision what that looks like, and then we can start building the steps to get there, right? So a coach can use this as a guide to help uh, articulate the clear hopes and positive vision of their future, as this image will inspire and guide this present day action. So these are what these core principles are. And then what we have here is the 5 D's circle of AI. Initially, we watched the video of the 4, but what was added here is the define, which is important because, again, when we use these questionings and based off of these principles, how we frame it and the intent behind the question will definitely lead it in a direction. And if we have more precision in what we're defining the question to be or the inquiries to be, the more narrow our path will be, and the more focus we'll get at reaching what we're trying to like lead to. So what we have here is define. I don't know if this is very visible, but define what is a topic of inquiry, used to clarify the project purpose, the content, and the need to be achieved. The guiding question is what generative topic do we want to focus on together? So as far as this goes in the application within the coaching practice that we did with our coachees, in my particular case, the coachee was looking at anxiety. That was our topic of focus. And the question that we kind of went to defining the next question, it was like, what would you, what would be an ideal outcome of our work on anxiety today? So this is like bringing in after we discovered what the coach wanted to talk about, what he brought up. It's what would be an ideal outcome for the topic of anxiety today to work on it, right? And then what we lead to discovery or discover. This is the what if. So anticipating the best of what is, right? What is based on the dialogue, a way of finding what works, rediscovering and remembering the success, strengths, and period of excellence. So here, what I have, especially working with the topic of anxiety with my coachee, it's something that would have us look at, again, framing it in a positive way. Um, Tell me about a time you felt anxious but were still able to move forward successfully. What made that possible? So, framing it in a way that is leading them to identify the success in their thought or creating that atmosphere that feels good to them, because we want to make sure that we frame it in a positive light. Okay, and then we have dream. What could be, right? Okay, so in my um, coaching session, I helped create an analogy of imagery or a thing to think about that can be more understood or tangible, like its movements, something that happens within us every day, because anxiety is very abstract and different for everybody. So we use this idea of a popsicle stick or having ice cream, and even though you get a brain freeze from the anxiety, if you still carry it around, the popsicle stick, you have that reminder that can really trigger it back. So what are we going to do with this popsicle stick, right? So what we can do here for the dream, to like what could be, is say something like, imagine you no longer carry the packaging and popsicle stick of your past anxieties. What does your day-to-day life look like in this version or in this vision? So because we're looking at what could be, using it in a positive way, um, creating that imagery or that the possibility of what it could be to live without anxiety, um, and how it can make them feel like what. And I think that's really this core approach is using a more, I guess, positive feeling of it all. You can ask questions that lead to feelings of negative emotions response, but if you give somebody the empowering, positive emotional response, it can really help drive things forward, especially in this kind of topic. Okay, leading into design, what should be, right? So this is what it should be. Brings things together, the story from discovery with the imagination and creativity and dream to create what should be the ideal. Okay. So in here, what we can do is the coach can help um, really lead on from the dream phase. And we can say something like that, like, what are the key steps and tools you need to create to turn this vision into a reality? So again, this design is after you can conceptualize what it is to live without anxiety, what are the key things you can do to get there? So now that you created a vision of what it could be. Now you have a point of reference that you can move towards, and keeping this again very narrow and straight, and leading on this positive path and creating like intentional questioning. You can find that point and you can move towards it very with precision, and and keeping it within the bounds of this constructionalist approach, right? Creating this world, this reality of that this is actually successful, and using again the simultaneity principle by using these words and languages, but also because you start questioning, it starts to create the change in them. To start thinking like, oh, there is a possibility of change. There is a place where I can see myself. That is something, and now they're like, okay, well, if there's something there, there's a way to get there. Poetic principle. Hopefully, this appreciative inquiry would be part of the poetic principle, looking and leaning into things that we can gain more knowledge from, especially by choice. Again, positive principle, making sure that we're doing anything, framing it in a really positive way to make those positive outcomes, giving the coachee the ability to feel the comfort and the confidence into moving forward. And then we're going to lead into delivery and or destiny, which is creating what will be, identifying how the design is delivered and how it embedded in the groups, communities, and organizations. So this what will be, as far as a coaching implementation design, it's something we can say like, what is the single most important commitment you can make to start this process this week? So we're creating these actionable steps, especially leading in with a coaching session, leading into something at the end of the session where you recap everything, and then you start to define what it is that is most important to them to keep going with this positive momentum of change. And again, this would be the anticipatory, right? Images inspiring action, using the dream, using the design, using pretty much all of the cycle, these 5 cycles, will help lead into this delivery part, right? Really creating and moving forward um, into their next days, their next actionable steps, their framing of mind, um, the new possibilities, the encouragement, the empowerment, and all that good stuff. But overall, I think this was a wonderful topic to cover, and I think it really um, enriches the practice and techniques that we learned as far as coaching. And yes, thank you so much, everybody. I really hope that you have a wonderful rest of the summer, and I look forward to networking and meeting you outside of this course. Have a wonderful rest of the semester. Have a wonderful year, and God bless.